Welcome back to One for Review. I'm Grant, here to review an anime from the amazing Trigger Studio. Today's review is on a show that's inspired by the Ultraman series and all the old style kaiju shows. SSSS Gridman. I'm pretty sure I said the right amount of S's, excuse me if I did not. And let me tell you something, the Trigger seems to always make a hit, Like 2013, Kill a Kill, 2016, Space Patrol Luluko. Again in 2016, they came out with Kiz Navier, which was a huge hit. Then in 2017 they came out with Little Witch Academia, a personal favorite of mine. Earlier this year, Darling in the Franxx, and before they were Trigger, they made Gurren Lagann, and now this. So these guys really do know what they're doing when it comes to anime, and at this point it's become a joke that all they do is really save anime with every show that they come out with. And, even if anime just doesn't need saving, they still save it. That's how good they are at making these anime. Okay. As always, let's start off with the details before I get reviewing about it. And these are the details that only I care about, but you still listen to because you enjoy hearing them. Okay, now the summary of the story. Yuta Hibiki is a first-year student in high school living in... I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. There you go. My bad. One day he wakes up without his memories. Yuta later meets up with Hyper Agent Gridman, who is inside an old computer. Gridman tells him to fulfill his purpose. Yuta's quest to understand the meaning behind those words, to find his memories, begins. While all of this is sudden, Yuta has his helpful assistance from his classmates Utsumi, Rika, and Akane, but those peaceful days are destroyed mercilessly by a monster that suddenly appears. Starring great actors such as Hirose Yuya as Yuta, the hero who loses his memory, or has he? Yamamoto Yume as Rika, the girl with the great legs, if you know what I mean, and I think you do. Uda Reina as Akane, who, by the way, looks a lot like her show counterpart without the purple hair. Saito Soma as Utsumi, the best friend. Midorikawa Hikaru as Gridman, and many, many, many more. I can't possibly mention all of them, because this show just has too many dang characters to mention all. Alright, I'll admit something right now. I might have a little bit of a bias right now. Trigger is one of my all-time favorite studios. And the reason why is because they've just made so many great anime. One of my first anime that I ever watched was Gurren Lagann. I absolutely love the show. And then they came out with Kill a Kill, which I also love the show. And all the other shows that I mentioned, I also love them. I mean, there are a few that I'm not a huge fan of, but then again, those are usually ones that are based on something else and not an original work for them. Now, when it comes to SSSS Gridman, I was really amazed at this show. I know, shocking, because I do love the studio, but the story that they had developed here was absolutely brilliant. At first I thought it was going to be one thing, but it turned out to be something else, and it was pretty amazing. I have to say, it does have a lot of twists and turns. The story, it's very entertaining, it's very interesting, and the characters are so fascinating. One part of the story I really appreciate is the antagonist. The antagonist is just so fascinating, so interesting. And it's one of those villains that you really hate, but you're so curious on what they're trying to do, what their goal is. All the main characters are very great, even though I did joke about Rika having great legs and nothing else. There is more to her character than just having great legs, and I will get to that in a minute. However, the bottom line of, when it comes to this show, the story at least, is it has a terrific story with great characters in it that really just keep it going. I was completely invested with this show, and as it went on, it got better and better. And as to the aspect of it paying homage to the Ultraman series, which, gotta be honest, I've never really been that into, which is a little bit weird because I do love Godzilla, I found it very amazing. It was just so interesting, and I loved how they paid homage to it. And I'll get more into how they do it later on when it comes to the animation. But as for right now, just know that the story is really, really good, really keeps you invested all the way to the end, which, oh my god, the ending is amazing. Moving on to the characters, the main character is Hibiki Yuta. He's a pretty interesting character. He loses his memory at the beginning, which does kind of... Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that whole plot point, but it does play a huge part later on, and it does have a great payoff. So I'm not going to spoil anything much from there, but he's a good character, really good-hearted character. I really don't think he's that interesting, but I do like him a lot. I found him very likable. I liked his goals. I liked who he was, and he had some funny moments. The real meat and potatoes of the entire cast really has to be Utsumi, Rika, and Akane. All three of these characters are especially interesting. All of them are very likable, and I have to say they're all very childlike. I don't know what it is about Trigger, but they seem to really manage to get the child out there, a realistic kid, and representation. And all these characters do feel like high schoolers. All of them act like high schoolers, even their friends that they hang out with, or Rika's friends that she hangs out with. I liked all of them. They all felt very real to me, really down to earth. And they were all just pretty likable, very normal people. And all of them had a very unique design. All of them were very different. I liked how they made them stand out, which is a very Trigger thing to do. They make the main characters really stand out with flashing colors. And I really did like them. All of them were really good. Now, there's, of course, other characters I'm not mentioning. Some of them are kind of spoilers related, so I'm not gonna mention them, but I'm just gonna say the supporting cast for this show is really good. All of them are very good. One of my favorites being is Auntie, which I'm not gonna say anything more about him. Just know he's a really good character, really likable as well, really cool looking as well. So that's really all I have to say about the characters. All of them are very likable. All of them are really cool. And I honestly can't give too much away because that would just spoil the entire story, which the story is very interesting and the characters are very integrated into the story. So even mentioning certain details, which I'm trying not to right now, would be spoiling the story. So let's move on. Next up is the presentation of the show. One of the most important parts about any anime, the presentation. How does it look? How does it sound? First up, the animation. The animation is amazing. It's Trigger. They always do a great job. Very colorful, very gorgeous. Now, the fight scenes. This is one thing that I know some people will be interested in hearing my thoughts because they are in CG. 3D CG that is pretty obvious. Now, I've mentioned before I don't like CG animation in animes unless it's very well integrated into the show. And I have to admit, SSSS Gridman uses 3D animation to its benefit. I really do mean that. It uses it to its benefit. It's only used during the fight scenes, and it's only used on Gridman himself and the monsters he's fighting, the kaijus. And it looks amazing. And the reason why it looks amazing is because they are paying homage to Ultraman. And watching the Ultraman series and watching old kaiju films where, they fight other, robots, and, Jack Jaguar, of course, a classic. Anyways, watching that kind of stuff, everything looks pretty damn good in the miniatures. But then, of course, you got the monsters, which they do look fake, of course, even though they do look good. In trying to pay homage to this, Trigger did a brilliant thing of combining 3D CGI with 2D animation. Everything around them is 2D animation, while the fight scenes between the actual Gridman himself and the monsters are all CG. And their movements, the way they act, the way they fight, it looks like people in rubber suits, and it's incredible that they managed to do that. I can't believe that they managed to do that. They created the effect in an anime, and that's the beauty of Trigger right there. They managed to really, really pay homage to these types of the Ultraman series. I kind of forgot right there what I was talking about, but yeah, I was really amazed with the animation, 3D animation combined with the 2D animation, and on itself, the 2D animation is very well done. I really like it. It is Trigger after all. They make great animation all around. The music that the show has to offer is fantastic. The main theme of Gridman is terrific. It happens in the intro, but it also does happen in the fight scenes, and it is awesome to hear. All the music's really good, all the other music, but the main theme is absolutely terrific, and I'd honestly recommend the soundtrack based on that one theme by itself. I love the intro. This was one of the intros that I was actually excited to watch every time I watched the show. The only one I could think of that I also had that same feeling was Zombieland Saga. And this one was just amazing. I really love the intro. I love the music. It's really well done. Now, would I buy the soundtrack by itself? Yes, I would, because of that one theme. But, if you're not into the one main theme, then, yeah, the rest of the music is good. It's passable. It gets the job done. But the main theme is fantastic. Okay, So, what have we learned? We learned that SSSS Gridman has saved anime. No, I'm kidding. It's got a great story. It's got a great story. That's probably the biggest thing I need to put out there. It's got a fantastic story that keeps you invested with great characters. All the characters are solid, well voice acted, great actors that I've actually heard before, seen before in other works, and they're all terrific. They all do a great job. Even the ones that I didn't mention, you know who you are, except you won't watch this video, so it doesn't matter. Great actors, great characters. I'm sorry, great characters, great story, great animation, and great music. What does that lead? It leads almost to a perfect show, except I don't think SSSS Gridman is a perfect show. Except for a few personal nitpicks that I have that really aren't that big of a deal. I can't say that this is a legendary 10 out of 10, type of score for me, but it is a solid 9 out of 10. This is a really good show and a absolute recommendation from me. If you're a fan of old kaiju, shows, Ultraman, definitely check this out. It's a great homage to that. If you're a fan of Trigger, definitely check this out. If you're a fan of anime and wants to see it saved yet again, check this show out. I do recommend this show. I absolutely enjoyed this show without a doubt, especially as it went along. It starts off not slow, but it starts off good, but then it starts to get even increasingly better as it goes along, and that is just the beauty of Trigger. That seems to be what they always do and what they always aim for. Well, anyways, thank you guys for watching. I'm Grant for One Fair Review. If you have watched SSSS Gridman and you hate it, you love it, whatever it may be, write down in the comments down below what you guys thought about this show. I want to hear what you guys think. If you have not yet, please like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, have a nice day, and I'll see you next time on One Fair Review.